When I took over as country director for World Gospel Mission in Honduras a couple of years ago, I was confronted with some pretty interesting statistics. The first thing that I learned was that over the last 25 years, the evangelical community had grown from 21% of the population of Honduras to 51% of the population today. But another disturbing statistic that I saw was that in 2015, the World Bank declared Honduras to be the most deadly nation on the planet. Darrell Miller, in his book Discipling Nations, makes a statement about this when he says, if the church doesn't disciple the nations, then the nations will disciple the church. And that's exactly what's happening in Honduras. The church is becoming more like the nation rather than the nation being influenced by the church. Probably the biggest contributor to this is a worldview problem. Worldview in Honduras could probably be summed up like many other worldviews in many other nations. It's predominantly a Christian worldview because it's had a Roman Catholic and an evangelical Christian influence for the last couple hundred years. But it's been peppered by the spiritualism, the animism, what Colson and Piercy call worshiping the created rather than the creator. Everything has spirit, everything controls everything else, and we really have no control over what's going on. And so there's a very fatalistic attitude about life in general. And then there's the idea that that each group has to proclaim their own right. We've become very polarized by postmodern tribalism. And what that means is that people are basically hanging on to their peculiarities rather than trying to be unified and get things done. So we have a Christian worldview that's been diluted by animism and by postmodern tribalism. So what do we do as a church? The first thing that we decided to do, if we're going to make an impact, it's got to be through the church. So we took our best leaders. We took 50 of them and we took them to Panama. We spent an entire week working with thought leaders in worldview and helping us to figure out what a Christian worldview was, how to tell the story, what the story was, and how it should impact really everything that we do as a church. We brought these leaders back. Many of them are behind pulpits. All of them are heading up ministries. And so we've been able to relay that message now to thousands of people in the church. We're seeing new movements rise up, and we are impacting society through the church now through the implementation of these worldview studies. Looking back, I think some of the things that we did really well was what Etheridge calls providing wise leaders. One of the things that we do well in Honduras is the political part of it. And he talks about wise leaders, Etheridge talks about wise leaders being both political leaders and intellectual leaders. Our leadership in Honduras politically is really kind of an easy thing because we're a very relational culture. And so interpersonal skills are something that are really high demand there, and people know how to do that. They know how to influence others and to get people on their side. So we did that fairly well. The intellectual part of it was a little bit different. Education isn't a priority in many parts of the country, and so that was a little bit more difficult. We did implement wise policies. What we did was we took and restructured our strategic plan and made worldview the lens through which everything else is seen. What would I have done different? Something that I could really have used at the beginning was Thompson's approach to decision making, systematizing my decision making instead of just trial and error, and if that doesn't work, try something else. Systematizing, taking the stimulus, what is the impulse behind this, and then perceiving it, and then moving into an appraisal. You know, what does this mean? What are my options? And then looking at my motivation. Well, if I don't do something, we're going to keep going down the same road that we're going. And then, of course, taking action. And what we did was take action. We did all these steps, but we kind of hit or miss a couple times, and we ended up having to do it. So going forward, I believe that some of the things that I've learned in this course, especially this PAMA approach to systematizing decision making, have been very impactful in my leadership life.